Coming up on Bridge City News, the World Health Organization has come up with good news about the novel coronavirus, especially for those who may be asymptomatic. The United States now leads the world with the amount of confirmed cases of the virus. We have the numbers for you. And we hear from Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder, who stopped by BCN to discuss how our farming communities are disappointed in compensation that Trudeau Liberals have offered.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The World Health Organization dropped a bombshell recently. Maria Van Kerkhove, head of the WHO's Emerging Diseases Unit and leading epidemiologist, says transmission of the novel coronavirus by people who are not showing any symptoms is very rare.
It still appears to be rare that an asymptomatic individual actually transmits onward.
The U.S. leads the world with 3 million confirmed cases of COVID-19, but fortunately just over 900,000 people have recovered. There have also been 132,000 deaths attributed to the virus in the United States. Dr. Anthony Fauci is an American physician and is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases since 1984. Dr. Fauci says the state of the coronavirus in the U.S. is not good right now. He said that cases have doubled in a week and a half as states and cities attempt to reopen their economies.
We were averaging about 20,000 new cases a day, and then a series of circumstances associated with various states and cities trying to open up in the sense of getting back to some form of normality has led to a situation where we've now had record-breaking cases. 2 days ago, it was at 57,500. So within a period of a week and a half, we've almost doubled the number of cases.
Where are we, Tony, with the vaccine efforts that have been moving forward at unprecedented speed? But of course, they're full of scientific challenges.
If things go the way it looks like they're going, one of these candidates will enter phase 3 trial for efficacy at the end of July.
Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro wore a mask today as he told reporters that he has tested positive for COVID-19. The Brazilian president spent months saying the virus was nothing more than a little flu, and his history as an athlete would protect him from it. More than 65,000 Brazilians have so far died from the coronavirus, and more than 1.5 million people have been infected. Now, when it comes to COVID-19 cases here in Canada, we now have 106,000 confirmed cases of the virus, but fortunately, almost 70,000 people have recovered. 8,700 people have also died from the novel coronavirus in our nation. In Alberta, we have 607 active cases with 7,627 people recovered. There are currently 57 people in hospital, and provincially, there have been 155 deaths. The province has close to 490,000 Albertans have now been tested for COVID-19. Now here's a regional breakdown of the amount of active cases. In the South Zone, which includes Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and Brooks, there are 84 active cases. In Calgary, they have 228. Edmonton is at 234. The Central Zone, which includes Red Deer, only has 4 active cases, and in the North Zone, they currently have 53. The province of Alberta is looking at changes to employment standards and labor relations rules. Officials say the proposed changes would support economic recovery, restore balance in the workplace, and get more Albertans working again. Bill 32 would provide employees and employers with more transparent rules promoting fairness and productivity, including more clarity about rest periods and temporary layoff notices. If passed, the province's reduced red tape from daily operations could save employers around $100 million per year, keeping more businesses open. Building Brains has been out in the community to share research about how playing can help children throughout their development of their early years. It's a great opportunity for families to bring their kids out to learn ways to help children become more successful in life. Now, for one parent, the program not only explained how a child's first 5 years of development are crucial, but it also helped her son.
So it was extremely helpful for me because my son has ADHD and sensory processing disorder. So these fundamental building blocks in his first 5 years were huge. And had I not known about them, I could have, he could be developing addictions later. I didn't know about the stress that I could have caused him or the serve and return conversations on how important that is.
And we're out in the community working to connect with families and parents and caregivers to share some of our research about how play can really build brains and strengthen the brain foundation for children in their development during the early years. So we're out in the community with our bright yellow tent, playing games with kids, and just giving them an opportunity to engage with our summer students and get to learn about the importance of play.
The Building Brains tent will be at the Helen Schuler Nature Centre this Friday from 10 till 2. Researchers at the University of Lethbridge are saying our academic system needs to be revamped to help parenting researchers and women in Canada. A recent article published in EMBO Reports, or EMBO, says the present pandemic deepens the already existing divide between parenting researchers and in the long run will negatively impact recruiting and retraining junior researchers.
And it shines a light on how we as a society, and in particular we as a university, recognize productivity and recognize work for the society. Because in this case, we now feel there's a clash. Taking care of children is the most important task we can do for our society. This is the next generation. We need to really raise the children throughout the pandemic such that they are ready to bounce back to tackle future challenges. It's crucial for our entire society. But it limits productivity if you do that. Nobody can do 2 full-time jobs at the same time. And the question is, how do you recognize it? Because on the other hand, researchers, workers who don't have children actually have more time at the moment.
The U of L has been researching the effects of the coronavirus, specifically on women and parents with young children at home. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle is one of the most challenging things a person may face in everyday life. Alberta Health Services South Zone is trying to combat this stress with a new virtual service called the Alberta Healthy Living Program. A spokesperson with the AHS explains what types of strategies you may learn.
One of the things we do within Alberta Healthy Living is we really focus on a patient-centered approach. So what that means is we are finding out what does the patient want and how can we help them meet those needs while still covering some of the important information that they may need to move forward with their chronic disease, whether that be medications, whether that be how to goal set, whether that is how to just kind of get through their day-to-day, or even long-term, right? How to get to things that are further down the months for them.
The program is available on your laptop or tablet via Zoom. You can also access it through their app. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to rising interest in the concept of basic income for all Canadians. Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux says a 6-month program would run in the range of $47.5 to $98.1 billion. Millions of Canadians have watched their jobs or earnings evaporate during the pandemic. Ottawa's already spent about $174 billion to provide financial aid for both individuals and businesses. The province of Ontario is set to extend some pandemic emergency orders until next year. The proposed law introduced at the legislature today would allow the government to extend or amend some emergency orders 1 month at a time. Currently, the province can only issue emergency orders while a state of emergency is in place. The legislation is set to expire on July 15th. And still in Ontario, Toronto Mayor John Tory says his city has brought forth a temporary bylaw today where non-medical masks must be worn in any indoor public space. The City of Ottawa also announced today that it will be bringing forth a similar bylaw. Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller and Assembly First Nations National Chief Perry Bellegarde signed an agreement to keep implementing Bill C-92. It recognizes the right Indigenous communities have to control child welfare programs for their own children. Miller refused to put a dollar amount on the funding, and Bellegarde says reluctance by provinces is a main barrier to progress.
And one of the conversations that we were going to have to sit down at tripartite tables with provinces is to talk about resources and how they're allocated, not only the quantum, but also to what end they are allocated, from going from an intervention model to a prevention model. And that will require a rethinking of a way of doing things that we've been doing up to now and that has failed. So that will inevitably require discussions with the provinces.
Some provincial premiers and governments are a little bit more advantageous or more open to deal with this and have better relationships with First Nations chiefs and leaders in their respective territories than others. Let's be open and frank about it. And so one of the biggest challenges is to working with premiers and the appropriate ministers and chiefs and their leadership to talk about transition, to talk about existing laws, to make sure that children don't fall through the cracks, because this is all about embracing change.
As you've heard on Bridge City News, the Trudeau Liberals have suspended Parliament until the fall. Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder stopped by her studio recently and said, that's wrong.
So we really felt that Canadians deserve to have parliamentarians back in the House of Commons debating legislation, making important decisions. I mean, if you can't do that at a time of crisis, then what is the point? You know, I mean, this is what we sign up for. As members of Parliament, we put our name on a ballot because we're saying, I want to represent my constituents in the good times and the bad times. Well, this happened to be the bad times. It's my responsibility to be out there representing the people who elected me to do so.
Catch my full interview with Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder, also discussing why she feels Ottawa's not doing enough to support our farming community. That is coming up after business news. Have you been thinking about working out and getting back into a groove? The Core Van Ray YMCA announced that they will be reopening on July 18th. The YMCA will be doing pre-bookings for a 75-minute time slot for the fitness center, aquatic centers, and gym. Now, all memberships are currently on hold, and if you want to activate your membership, you need to call the main number of the Lethbridge YMCA.
You know, we have a number of restricted conditions put in place right now for people on their return. So we're moving to a book before you arrive model. So you'll have to visit our website to make sure that there's a time available, a time slot. And then once you book that time slot, you'll be required to come in at that time. And then the time slots reset every 70 minutes. And then we reset the facility after every single time block so that the next group coming in comes into a sanitized facility. So we're always constantly checking in new people in blocks and then cycling other people through the facilities.
For appointments, you need to be at the YMCA 15 minutes before your booking time to be able to register and complete the health screen process. Canadian country music star Gord Bamford is excited that he'll be performing in Lethbridge. On July 11th at 6 and 9 p.m., the Alberta race singer will be participating in a drive-through concert at Exhibition Park. Bamford says he's really looking forward to performing once again.
Lethbridge has been so great to me, you know, down there and, you know, playing many different shows. Alberta in general, you know, it's been good. And I've been lucky to branch my career out nationally, but Alberta is definitely a home for me and you know, I've played many times in Lethbridge. It's a pretty entertaining hour for the family and something that, you know, at $65 a car is really cheap and affordable for families. And for us, it's, you know, we're just excited to be on the stage again, you know, playing. It's been a long time. And basically you can have your windows down and your sunroof open. And like I said, we're surround sound the whole venue. So the sound comes in really well. And it's a great night for everybody. And it's kind of, you know, get out of the house and have, you know, feel like you're back to normal a little bit.
The concert series is in support of local mental health organizations across the province. Proceeds from the concerts in Lethbridge will go to Woods Homes and Lethbridge Family Services. A two-day public hearing on systemic racism is being held by Calgary City Council. Thousands of Calgarians marched through the streets to speak out against racism and police brutality recently. The city's Community and Protective Services Committee has set aside today and tomorrow to hear from at least 150 people who are registered to speak. With COVID-19 restrictions in place, people will call in remotely and be given 5 minutes to have their say. In Edmonton, meanwhile, City Council approved an $11 million reduction to the police budget over the next couple of years. The provision is one of many councillors approved to change how police services are managed in the city. It also includes a plan for the city to work more closely with social agencies to help Edmonton's vulnerable population. The cut to the police budget for 2021 and 2022 is to be reinvested into supportive housing. The U.S. federal election is slated for this November. Now, will Trump win re-election, or will the Democrats and Biden take over the White House? Only time will tell. As we hear in this next report, it appears as though the United States is on edge as the election draws nearer.
Lately, things have been rough in Saginaw. The death toll from COVID-19 is among the highest per capita in the nation. The region lost thousands of jobs because of the pandemic. And 2 dams to the north were recently overrun by heavy rains flooding parts of the county.
2020 has been such a crummy year.
You know, people here they're waking up, they're fed up.
No justice, no peace. Michigan and other battleground states have been hit with a pandemic, a recession, and an uprising against police abuse.
No justice, no peace.
These forces are converging as the nation heads toward the presidential election.
The only positive thing that's come out of all of this is that I think we're going to see a lot higher voter turnout here.
Kevin Hayes plans to cast his first ever presidential vote for Joe Biden. It's not that the 20-year-old Michigan State student is particularly passionate about the former vice president. It's that he doesn't like the man in the Oval Office.
I absolutely hate Donald Trump. There's not a single good thing I could say about that man. I mean, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to see what it is that people see in him.
For decades, Saginaw County and Michigan voted for Democratic candidates for president, but local business owner Tom Roy is hoping for a repeat Trump victory.
Donald Trump will get his message back out that he wants more jobs, he wants to bring the economy back, and we want to make America great again.
I think we're at a moment where if truth prevails and honesty takes the forefront, we could see some changes.
Pastor Hurley Coleman thinks those changes could lead to greater unity. He says the United States isn't being pulled apart, it's growing.
I am incredibly hopeful because of this swell of enthusiasm and energy that's in the streets now, that's in our communities now.
A hope shared by Dave Adams, who stepped down as a high school teacher to devote his time to defeating Trump.
There's something we can do, and that's get involved politically in order to try to change it.
Fittingly in Saginaw, they are still looking for America. Mike Householder, The Associated Press, Saginaw, Michigan.
Just as word comes out that the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is a go, a judge in the United States has ordered the Dakota Access Pipeline shut down. And the reason? Additional review, even though it has been pumping oil for more than 3 years. An attorney for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe calls the ruling an unprecedented win.
The judge got the law exactly right. You need to do environmental analysis on the risks of a thing before you operate it. That's what the tribe has been saying all along since the beginning. It wants a full environmental review of the risks of this pipeline, and it wants its treaty rights respected. Finally, those things are going to happen.
We had a severe thunderstorm watch in our region earlier today, and the rain should be tapering off. Full weather details are coming up. We had thunder showers in some regions of southwestern Alberta today. Tonight, the rain should start dissipating with a low near 11. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy with a high near 17. The mercury will climb nicely on Thursday, as we should see high near 25 under a mainly sunny sky. Sunshine at 28 degrees for Friday. So far, a nice weekend is shaping up. Sunny and 27 for Saturday, mainly sunny and 28 degrees on Sunday. Monday, just a few clouds developing with a high near 22. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 25 degrees and an average low of 10. The highest temperature on this date recorded was in 1943 at 34 degrees, and the record low was a chilly 3 degrees in 1996. Sunrise was at 5:33, sunset at 9:40. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across this beautiful country now. Victoria and Vancouver should be mainly cloudy and 20, overcast and 19 degrees for Calgary on Wednesday. Showers and 16 is on tap for Edmonton. A good chance of rain and 20 degrees for both Regina and Saskatoon. Thunder showers and 25 is on tap for Winnipeg. Toronto had a heat warning today. Tomorrow, a slight chance of showers developing with a high near 33. Ottawa also had a heat warning today. Tomorrow, a good chance of rain and a high of 31. Light showers and 32 degrees is on tap for Montreal on Wednesday. In Atlantic Canada, expect showers and 17 in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Lots of clouds and 18 for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Expect light showers at 21 degrees in Charlottetown, PEI, and in St. John's, Newfoundland, it should be partly cloudy and a high near 16 for tomorrow. Our country's parliamentary budget officer says a 6-month basic income program for all Canadians could cost up to $98.1 billion. Budget officer Yves Giroux says the price tag would depend on how much is clawed back as incomes rise. His report says the average benefit for those aged 18 to 64 would be between $4,500 and $4,800. Senators and MPs have been asking the federal government about such a program amid massive job losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It would begin when the emergency response benefit expires in October. A new poll says there may be turbulent times ahead for airlines trying to win public support for their COVID-19 plans. Transport Minister Marc Garneau is also facing heat for refusing to force airlines to fully refund tickets for flights canceled due to the pandemic. In lieu of refunds, the airlines have offered travel vouchers. The poll by Leger and the Association for Canadian Studies suggests it may take a while for people to use them. Around 85% of those surveyed said they had no plans to travel outside of the country by the end of the year. The U.S. Supreme Court handed another setback to the Keystone XL Pipeline. It supported a lower court ruling that blocked a key environmental permit for the project. TC Energy says it will need permits to continue building the pipeline across the U.S. rivers and streams. Without it, the project faces more delay, just as work had begun following years of courtroom battles. Monday's order also put on hold an earlier court ruling out of Montana as it pertains to other oil and gas pipelines across the United States. Samsung Electronics says its operating profit from the last quarter rose around 23%. The company says it was helped by demand in memory chips used in personal computers as more people work from home during the coronavirus pandemic. The South Korean technology giant is projecting a profit during the April to June period of about $6.8 billion. The company's revenue for the quarter is forecast to fall 7% to around $43.6 billion US. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 74 points on the day to finish at 15,595. The Dow was down 396 points to 25,890. The S&P 500 was down 34 points to 3145, and the Nasdaq was down 89 on the day to 10,343. Oil was down a cent to $40.62 per barrel. Natural gas was up 5 cents to $1.88. Gold was down 4 cents to $17.94.82 an ounce, and silver was up 6 cents to $18.34 an ounce. Wheat is at $235 per metric ton. Barley's at $240, canola's at $4.80, and corn is at $234 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 10 cents to 100 even. Feeder cattle were down $1.23 to 134.93, and lean hogs were down 40 cents on the day to 48.88. The Canadian dollar was down slightly on the day to 73.50 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the head of the World Health Organization's Emerging Diseases Unit and leading epidemiologist Maria Van Kerkhove says transmission of the novel coronavirus by people who are asymptomatic or who are not showing any symptoms is very rare. Now, this is good news as scientists are trying to learn more about this virus, which has so far claimed more than 539,000 lives. Farmers deserve a lot more help than they've been getting. Now, that's the message from Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder. MP Harder stopped by our studios recently and has more details in just a moment. A few months ago, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, who used to be a cabinet minister in the Harper government, took a shot at Peter MacKay by throwing his support behind Erin O'Toole becoming the new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. To talk more about this and the latest from Ottawa is Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Harder joining us in studio. Welcome back to BCN.
Thank you, Hal. It's really good to be here.
So, Rachel, let's talk about Premier Kenney supporting Erin O'Toole. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, as the Premier of Alberta, I think he was looking for someone who would represent Alberta's interests and someone who would also function with integrity and really be able to lead our country well, and he ultimately chose Erin O'Toole.
So how about you? Have you decided you're going to throw your support behind somebody yet? O'Toole, MacKay, Leslyn Lewis, Sloan? What do you?
Yeah, great question, Helen, and certainly it's one that many of my constituents have. I've made the determination that I will be sitting this one out, so I'll be maintaining my spot as a neutral observer.
Neutral observer.
Mm-hmm.
Any reason behind that?
You know, ultimately in these things we have a choice to make, and I felt that I wanted to be able to take a step back and watch all of the candidates and their ideas and really be able to champion principles, ideas, values, a way of leadership rather than a specific name.
Now, there's been some fighting going on between the O'Toole and MacKay camps. Now, I'm reminded of that biblical verse, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So the Liberals must be loving this, like, look at the way they're fighting here. So don't you think that really there should be some unity between the camps?
I think at this point in the race, you know, you have 4 contenders. They're all vying for, you know, the ultimate spot, which is to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all 4 of these individuals are going to have to come together, and they are going to need to support whoever wins this leadership bid. It really is up to the membership to decide, you know, what they hold as most important to them, and then vote accordingly.
Many Canadians also feel, especially here in southern Alberta, that there are only 2 real true blue Conservative candidates when it comes to social issues, and that's Leslyn Lewis and Derek Sloan, where MacKay and O'Toole are viewed more as red Tories. What are your thoughts?
There's certainly that thought out there, and you know, when you look at some of their platform pieces and the values that they're you know, communicating to the public, you know, certainly Leslyn Lewis and Derek Sloan, you know, perhaps they take a more traditional stance in terms of those social conservative values, while Erin O'Toole and Peter MacKay, you know, probably take more of what we might call a red Tory stance.
Or progressive, maybe?
Or some might call it progressive, for sure. Some might call it that. At the end of the day, again, the membership really just needs to watch closely and evaluate the platforms and then make a decision.
Many countries around the world, people, MPs, federal politicians are in Congress and Parliament, but not here in Canada. Suspended until the fall. What is going on? Why?
It's shameful, Hal. It's shameful. We agreed on March 13th that we would all, go back to our constituencies and take, a bit of a reprieve from Parliament. The point of that was to be able to take care of those who are, local at home, and then also to stop the curve, right? Or flatten the curve, I should say. Because of course, with 338 MPs, traveling across the country, we wanted to make sure that we were setting a good example for the Canadian public. Now, we took that reprieve for a while, and then we resumed again in April to debate some legislation, some funding that the government wanted to roll out, and then also we needed to discuss whether or not Parliament would resume. At that point, Conservatives made the case that we could return and do so safely, maintaining 6-foot distance, making sure that masks were worn, those sorts of things, in order to make sure that our safety was put first and foremost.
Sure.
The Liberals didn't like our proposal, so Parliament got shut down again, and then in May we came back and we put our proposal forward again, and by this point we could see that around the world, governments were resuming and they were doing incredible work for their people. Mm-hmm. Canada was still in this, place of stagnation, and so we really felt that Canadians deserve to have parliamentarians back in the House of Commons debating legislation, making important decisions. I mean, if you can't do that at a time of crisis, then what is the point? This is what we sign up for. As members of Parliament, we put our name on a ballot because we're saying, I want to represent my constituents in the good times and the bad times. Well, this happened to be the bad times. It's my responsibility to be out there representing the people who elected me to do so.
Let's talk about the debt now. The first 4 years, the federal Liberals spent around $87 billion. Now, according to the parliamentary budget officer this year, Trudeau will add another $256 billion. And that's money that's going to have to be paid back.
Yeah.
How are we going to get our debt under control here?
Yeah, and this is the question that so many Canadians have, After all of this money is spent, how is it going to be paid back? Will it be paid back? And I'm hearing from parents and grandparents that are very concerned that it's that next generation or generations that are going to be paying, increased taxes in order to make sure that this debt load is finally taken off the backs of Canadians.
Was the money that needed to be spent, however, to get Canadians working and to protect us from COVID-19?
I think there's different points of view on that. There are some who would say, yes, this money needed to be spent, and there are others who would make the case that, no, it didn't need to be. Here's what's known, though, as fact, Hal, and that is that the Liberals had an opportunity to get our House in order before the pandemic. They didn't need to spend all of the money that they've been gallivanting across the country spending over the last 4 years of being in government. They could have made sure that we had a strict budget in place, that we were balancing the budget, that we were exercising fiscal restraint as a country, and to make sure that we were in a really good, strong position before this pandemic hit. Unfortunately, the Liberals chose to spend a whole lot of money, be irresponsible, and it put us in a detrimental place.
So what is needed right now to help businesses get back on their feet again?
Yeah, this breaks my heart because I'm talking to local business owners and they are struggling. So many of them are struggling, particularly in the hospitality and tourist industry. And so, we know that these individuals need some further assistance. Ultimately, they need employees to come back so that they can be fully functioning. And what's happening is with the CERB benefit that's being given out by the current government, it's actually disincentivizing work. So people are choosing to collect, a check from the government instead of actually going back to work and taking up shifts and earning, an income. What that does then is it prevents employers from being able to open their doors fully and function, which ultimately hurts all of Canada.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was also going to be talking about our economy, but he's only giving us a little glimpse in regards to having a snapshot of the economy, right? Mm-hmm. And the Tories, federal Tories, have been pressing him for quite some time to talk about where do we really stand right now?
So he's announced that this week he's going to provide, a snapshot. Well, my question is that a snapshot of the past, what's been done, or is that a snapshot of the future, what's to come? So we don't know that until Trudeau actually delivers that announcement. Also, the question is that a snapshot in a formal way in the House of Commons, or is that a snapshot from his cottage doorstep, as have his announcements been so far? Again, because he's postpone Parliament resuming until September 21st, he really is creating a privileged position for himself and an opportunity to tout his own image. He really isn't interested in the best, the best for Canadians. And so really, when he says he's going to deliver a snapshot, you can bet that what he's doing is propagating himself, putting his government up on a pedestal, so to speak, and showing all of the good things that they have done or will do. Now remember, Hal, all of the money that they're spending, have spent, will spend, is coming out of Canadians' pockets. They've worked hard for it. Now the Prime Minister is going to spend it, and he's going to get the credit.
How about more support for our agribusiness sector? A lot of farmers and producers I've spoken with at Bridge City News, they're quite disappointed with the fact that they approached the government about $2.6 billion, but instead they only got $252 million. What are you hearing as well?
Well, here's the thing is that, when money started to roll out, it was done for the sake of, preserving essential services. What's more essential than food on our table? And so the fact that agricultural workers had to wait months before they finally heard anything from the government, even a peep, is just wrong. It's just despicable hell. When this pandemic hit fairly early on, within a couple of weeks, I had heard from, members from the grain sector, the pulses, beef, pork, chicken, all of these industries within ag that were being impacted. And they were saying to me, Rachel, we just don't feel like we have a voice. We don't feel that we're being listened to. We don't feel that we're being taken seriously. We're wondering when this government will realize just how essential we are. Truth, Hal? The government never did wake up and realize just how essential this sector is. Not only because they feed Canadians, but because they feed the world. I mean, hell, this is incredible. This is incredible what those in southern Alberta and across Canada do with their land and the potential that lies within their own hands in order to take care of Canadians. Why wouldn't our government want to honor those women and men who work so hard to take care of us?
Well, look at the big investment here with Cavendish Farms as well, how much they expanded, hundreds of millions of dollars, and bringing more jobs. So they believe in our economy as well. Now, let's switch gears for just a moment, talk about the energy sector as well.
Sure.
Finance Minister Bill Morneau, March 25th, says, you know what, we're going to be offering some help to the oil and gas sector within hours, within maybe days or weeks. Well, it's about 4 months later, and I guess a lot of people are still waiting for that help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we know that the oil and gas sector is so important, not only here in the province of Alberta, but across the country. When our oil and gas sector thrives, our entire country thrives. I mean, we're talking about the single greatest contributor to Canada's GDP. Not only that, Hal, but when we refuse to support our own industry, it means that we're having to support industries in other countries. For example, Saudi Arabia. Well, we know that when we, support Saudi Arabia, they don't have a good human rights record. They don't have environmental protections in place. And so Canada then, in refusing to develop and support its own industry, is then choosing to side with a country like Saudi Arabia. And actually then, we have to take responsibility for the human rights atrocities and the environmental negligence that is taking place in Saudi Arabia, because we're supporting it rather than developing our own industry. That's wrong, Hal.
The border's been closed for quite some time, and the feds announced that it'll stay closed to about July 21st, maybe another extension beyond there, because of the second wave that's hit so terribly in many states, including New York State, Florida, California. What are your thoughts about that, about the border being closed for an extended period of time?
Right.
For land travel. We're talking about crossing the border via car, right?
Right. Hal, first we have to remember that, there were many calls given by the opposition party for the borders to be closed, in February. And that really is when it should have happened. Unfortunately, the current government acted far too late in finally closing down the borders.
To non-essential travel, right?
To non-essential travel, yes, of course. Now, in having closed down the borders, they've been closed down for several months now. We know that they're going to be closed until July 21st. And then, of course, it's going to have to be reassessed. And we know that the cases in the US are growing day by day. And so ultimately, the two governments have some really difficult decisions to make as to whether or not those borders are going to be reopened.
Now, Rachel, you've been critical of the Trudeau Liberals in the past, especially our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, when it comes to his leadership on the world stage. Let's talk about China now. They banned a lot of our products here, including pork and beef for a short period of time, canola as well for a long time now. And as well, we still have to get our two Michaels back, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. Let's talk a bit about that, about some of his leadership as well, why you've been so critical.
Well, Hal, it's pretty simple. You know, early on, several years ago, Trudeau made an announcement to the world, and he made the announcement that he was incredibly supportive of China. In fact, he actually admired the basic dictatorship of China, his words. And, you know, and you have to wonder, if you have a prime minister who admires the basic dictatorship of China, is he really going to be motivated to act in the best interest of Canadians? Well, I think his actions speak for themselves. So he hasn't done anything to help rescue the 2 Michaels that are stuck in China right now. Illegitimately, I should add. They haven't done anything wrong. You know,
they've been charged with spying, though, and if they're found guilty, they could face the death penalty, which is pretty scary.
They absolutely could, and that is really scary, and it's the job of the Prime Minister to defend Canadians first and foremost. Unfortunately, however, his love for the basic dictatorship in China is getting in the way of his ability to do a good job as a Prime Minister and stand up for Canada's industry interests, human rights interests, and the basic human interests of the 2 Michaels that are there.
Many people have suggested, including even members of the Liberal caucus, say that potentially Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should do a prisoner swap. The 2 Michaels in exchange for Meng Wanzhou, the CEO with Huawei. But he says, no, we don't want to do that because we'll put other Canadians' lives at risk as well for being kidnapped in the future. What are your thoughts? How should we solve the solution?
It's a great question. It's a really great question, and certainly there's lots of speculation out there coming from, you know, many different individuals. You know, at the end of the day, really what this is it's a classic case of weak leadership shown by our Prime Minister. And so we wouldn't actually find ourselves in this position where we're even having to give that consideration if the Prime Minister would simply stand up for Canada's interests. Unfortunately, he hasn't done that. He's capitulated over and over again. He's given in to demands by China, and he's refused to use his voice on the world stage. Instead, he's been preoccupied with trying to earn himself a seat on the Security Council with the UN. And that, unfortunately, has done a disservice to the Canadian public.
After pressure from the Tories and the Canadian public, the We Charity decided to end its partnership with the Liberal government. After Trudeau announced that We Charity was selected to administer around $900 million in federal student grants this summer, the We Charity would also expected to receive about $20 million in fees for their work. Mm-hmm. So tell me about some of that pressure that the Tories put on the Liberals here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, it's so interesting, isn't it? You know, so Trudeau has $900 million that he's going to roll out, and he just happens to give it to the We, or to the We Foundation or the We organization. And we find out that Sophie has very close ties with them. Justin Trudeau himself has very close ties with them. So really, this is a classic case of giving to friends. Well, in what world does it make sense for the Prime Minister of Canada to show favoritism to friends to the tune of $900 million?
Well, that's not the first time. I mean, come on.
Well, exactly. It's not the first time.
No, I mean, other prime ministers in the past as well. You know, they've probably given out to some of their, friends and, people who are closely associated with their particular party. I mean, this isn't something new.
Here's what we know with this Prime Minister.
Right.
We know that he is now being investigated for his 3rd ethics violation. So the Ethics Commissioner has now announced that a report will be drawn up with regards to the $900 million that was given to We. We know that in the past, this Prime Minister was found guilty by the Ethics Commissioner of taking taxpayer money and spending it on his vacation to the Aga Khan to the Bahamas.
The SNC-Lavalin affair?
We know that he also was caught and convicted, found guilty of violating an ethics rule, several ethics rules, I should say, with regards to the SNC-Lavalin affair and intervening in a criminal case. And now he's under a 3rd investigation. No Prime Minister ever before has undergone this many investigations, and no Prime Minister has ever been found guilty of an ethics violation. Trudeau has not only been found guilty of 1, but 2, and now potentially a 3rd. Hell, Canadians rightly deserve to know what is going on, and they deserve an opportunity to keep this Prime Minister held to account, and that means that Parliament needs to resume.
Let me ask you quickly, just a few moments here left. Will we see an election in the fall?
Speculation, Hal. Speculation.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Lethbridge MP, Rachel Harder, thanks a lot for joining me here in studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Marriage, it is often blissful for the first 6 months, and then real life kicks in after the honeymoon fades, and then the hard work begins. What are some of the keys to a successful marriage to help keep the romance going? Joining me at the desk today is Kelly Stickle, lead pastor with My Victory Church, and his lovely and talented bride, Joylyn Stickle, also with My Victory. Thanks for joining me on BCN here, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here.
Yep.
Ladies first, how long have you guys been married?
23 years this year.
Wow. Does it feel like 23 or
no?
long? No.
No, I feel like
No.
I'm 18, so that doesn't do
Oh.
bad. Yeah.
That's
no,
awesome.
it when you look back at the time when you weren't married, it seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
But no, it's been fun.
Yeah.
For the
Kelly,
most part.
how's the marriage really evolved since when you guys first got married to here we are 23 years later?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's evolved in many ways. I think, you go through all the different phases from feelings to pressing through to getting to know one another to the honest conversations, all of that stuff to working together. But we've been blessed. We both came from very solid homes, and both of our parents were in great marriages, so we didn't carry a lot of expectations or baggage in that. But so we came in with a lot of that stuff, and were able to work through a lot of that stuff.
So Joylyn, when you see that there's signs that your marriage may be in trouble a little bit,
Yeah.
because no marriage is perfect.
No.
How do you recognize some of those signs?
I think when you're with someone for a while, then you kind of know if something's off. You feel if something's off, and I think if you notice something's off, for us at least, we have always been very open. We've tried to be communicating a lot with that. And
Never go to bed angry, right?
Well, we try. There's been a few times when I'm just like, no, we're not doing this tonight. So honestly, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's obviously a very good thing to keep in mind. And and it's wise to not go to bed angry. But also we've found it's sometimes wise not to hash things out when you're tired. So sometimes we just say, okay, we're going to table this till tomorrow. I like you a lot. Just remember that, and we're going to sleep. And then we'll work it when our brains are fresh.
Kelly, how about for you? What were some of the warning signs when your marriage may potentially be in trouble?
I think one sign that is often overlooked is the joy level in the relationship. So if the Bible says, Nehemiah said it in Nehemiah 8:10 that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So if the joy level and the happiness and that joy level seems to decrease in any way, that's an indication that something's not as strong as it should be. So to me, that's one of those signs. If we're not laughing the same together, and the joy in the home is not the same as it once was, the passion wasn't the same, then something is slipping. And so let's jump on it and address it right away.
Now, you guys have kids.
We do. We
How
have
many
6.
Kids? 6 kids.
6 kids, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandbabies.
Oh, grandkids. Wow.
Yeah.
You guys started really young then.
Yep, we did.
Right?
We love it. We think we have some energy still to run the race with all the grandbabies too.
Now, do you still have date nights? And how important are date nights?
They're vital. Yes, we do date nights every week, and we've made that a important routine. Pastoring is not a 9 to 5 and then shut it off kind of thing. So there's lots of evenings that are required. So we just decided right from the beginning, and we started pastoring virtually right after we got married.
Yeah.
And so we just decided, no, we're going to make each other a priority at least once a week in a date night, and focus on each other.
Traditional dinner and a movie, or do you guys mix it up with axe throwing?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we like to get out and have dinner together, just so we can have talk without kids hanging off our arms. But we do talk about the kids mostly when we're out there. We try and say, okay, we're not talking about ministry, we're not talking about the kids, and then we sit there and stare
at
each other. A little bit bored. No.
But you're not on your phones, right?
No.
No.
We make priority not to be.
How detrimental is that to a marriage?
Oh, totally.
Putting in too much electronics, you're on your phone too much, or
Yeah.
maybe in front of your computer, or even, other electronics?
Yeah, and I think it can be a habit that hurts a lot of relationships for sure. When you're trying to, you're wrecking memories that could be had one-on-one FaceTime by recording memories or by looking at other people's memories and such. So,
it's true. I like back in the day when we didn't have cell phones and somebody would call. There's times where you'd let the phone ring when you're in an important conversation. But today, when you get a text comes in, or we're ready to drop everything right now and be distracted from the conversation, and that's really detrimental to good communication.
Aren't there also temptations as well when you're online? Maybe an old friend wants to reconnect on a social media avenue like Facebook.
Yeah.
Maybe an old girlfriend or an old boyfriend, perhaps. And
And it's easy to hide that too, right? Yeah. Like it's not like you're getting a letter in the mail from this old friend that your wife or husband could find. It's easy to hide these secret affairs that could happen online.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you rekindle the romance, though? I mean, after 20 years, I mean, date nights are fine, but how else do you rekindle the romance?
Go ahead.
What's the show rated? No, it's about setting aside time for one another. It's also about understanding each other's love language, and I love that book. We always come back to it. It's such a great, we can be communicating love and communicating passion, but if the other one's not receiving it in the way that we think we're communicating it, then we're missing. So it's really about investing in the other person, what makes them happy, what communicates love to them, and making sure that you're expressing that in multiple ways. So, little things that we've decided right from the beginning in our marriage was, Joylyn is really, big on physical touch and really big on, so when I leave, I don't leave without saying goodbye and a hug and a kiss. When I come home, I go to her and it's a hug and a kiss right away. And it's the communication that way is just saying, no, hey, you're the most important. I'm going to you. You get kids jumping on you, but you go right to her.
Because you never know, too, that maybe that might be the last hug and kiss you'll ever receive from your spouse.
Yeah.
Something could happen, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I should have hugged and kissed my spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it communicates priorities, right? So I'm excited to see you when I get home.
Yeah.
When I miss you when I go. It's little things like that. It just keeps things. And then text throughout the day or little sweet nothings here and there or whatever it might be is, just romance.
We still flirt with each other.
Yeah, we still flirt with each other. Yeah, we like that.
I've talked to other couples as well that say another thing you could do with your love language is maybe do the dishes. Or maybe the hubby can make dinner, maybe once a week or twice a week. In the summertime, a lot more.
Yeah.
And we've got the barbecue going, right?
Yeah.
So
if we want to keep the family alive, we do that as little as possible.
That's right. Well, but I mean, those are simple things you can do as well as a husband, right? Or
Yeah,
as a wife.
exactly.
Just little things like that.
Yeah, and things, they don't have to be big romantic gestures and going away for the weekend or whatever. And those are fun. Like you said, the date nights are fun, but no, it's all the little things along the way that show that you care and show that you're priority to each other.
How important is it to have something in common? A lot of people say opposites attract, it's better, the yin with the yang, there's proper balance that way. She's an introvert, I'm an extrovert, but we make it work. But I don't know, the older I get, my wife and I have been married for 30 years, I'm thinking having more things in common, similarities, works better, more effectively for a successful marriage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the longer you are married, the more things you do get in common, I think. The more things like my husband loves football, and he likes to say that I'm a huge fan of football, but I am a huge fan of him, and so I enjoy sitting down and watching it every once in a while with him.
And his reactions?
Yeah, well.
And the tears that fall?
I like when we're winning. But no, I think it's, you kind of love your person, and so you love what they love. And then there are some times when, like, we've always been in ministry, as he said, and so that's a huge passion beyond a job for both of us. And so that's our life, right? Like our ministry and our family. And so those things are huge commonalities that we share. But as far as hobbies and such like that, we
love the motorcycle. Yeah.
We love the motorcycle, and we enjoy doing things that the other likes to do as well.
Now you support him in football. What do you support Joylyn with? Maybe some of her passions.
Yeah, well.
Go to the opera, the ballet.
We watch some movies once in a while.
Chick flicks.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, he does.
He doesn't fall asleep though, does he?
No.
Okay.
No, he's very.
And I try hard not to mock any of them. It's good.
If he's quiet, then it's good.
How about when it comes to kids, making time for yourselves and say, kids, we love you guys, we'll die for you guys, but right now this is mom and dad time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hugely important. And my kids, because we homeschool them, they're home with me all the time, and Dad's home quite a bit too. Just the way he is, he tries to be home as much as he can throughout between the meetings and stuff, and we'll pop into his office and all that. So they get to see him. It's not like they're desperate for both of us by the end of the day because they've seen us throughout the day. So yeah, we don't feel bad about saying, okay, you can go. Even screens are great babysitters every once in a while, where you say, go on your screens and we're gonna just sit and talk, and it works sometimes.
Yeah, we try to do a holiday at least once a year where it's just the two of us.
Yes.
And we do holidays with the family, but we have at least a week where the two of us just go away, and that's important.
Mm-hmm. How important is respect when it comes to a relationship?
Oh man, it's utmost.
Yeah, it's vital.
I think even respecting who these people are, who your spouse is, and like you had talked about the love languages, and understanding that, okay, my love language is physical touch, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how he's going to feel love, but he knows that that's how I naturally show love. So just kind of respecting who each other is and understanding that and going with that.
Yeah, I think love is talked about often, but I think respect is not talked about enough. I think it's a vital part of people will focus on love and the feeling of love, but I think respect is the showing of value at another level for each one. And it's always focused on just the men need it, men and women need respect too.
Yeah.
What about forgiveness?
Yes,
Like
huge.
some couples go through an affair, other couples go through whatever else, some traumatic experience in their relationship. And the person says, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. And I think forgiveness needs to be separated from trust too. Like that's a whole other issue for sure. But yeah, forgiveness is for yourself. And I think if you're waiting for the other person to need that forgiveness or to ask for that or to reciprocate it, then you're gonna be waiting for a while probably. So I think forgiveness is for your own health.
Yeah, it definitely it's about self, but forgiveness is like Joylyn said is different than trust, and we mix those things up, and I think the idea that we forgive and forget, I think that's a misnomer as well. I don't think there's certain things that you can't forget, but the ability to forgive is a choice to not hold against the other anymore, and that's freeing for yourself when you forgive your spouse. But that's also freeing for the relationship. So it's vital. We're all human beings. We're all fallible. We're all going to hurt one another. We're all going to make mistakes. So forgiveness is invaluable to a relationship.
When Julie and I first got married in 1990, I was working in radio, and a lot of broadcast journalists, you pay your dues all over Canada. You travel, you go from station to station. But one good thing that we really realized in the early years was that we had to rely on each other and God. We didn't have any outside interference from other family members. As much as we love our moms and our dads, but sometimes, they can interfere, especially when you first get married. So would you give that kind of advice to other couples as well, to maybe kind of distance yourself, maybe create a little separation with maybe some moms and dads?
Yes, I do a lot of premarital counseling, and I advise, especially for newlyweds, when they first get married, is keep a healthy a separation between, parents, and because if we run to our parents with everything that she did wrong, then mom and dad are going to take that resentment, and it's going to create tension in the family. But we dump on mom and dad what she did wrong, but then we don't say, well, we made up and she apologized and all of that. Mom and dad are still walking around with this resentment, and it creates tension. And so be careful whose shoulder you cry on, but also the Bible does say leave and cleave, right? So it does say leave the parents. And so there has to be this healthy separation saying, hey, I don't need mom and dad like I did before. I'm leaving that necessity in order to focus on our marriage. And she's the most important thing now to me.
And I guess at the same time, if you ever want marital advice from your parents, let's say they're married 30, 40, 50 years, it's kind of cool that you can go talk to them as well, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because chances are they've been down the same road that you guys are going down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But make sure that your spouse is aware that when you're talking to mom and dad that we're having this conversation. This is what we talked about, and so that there's no expectation of tension as well, feeling like, okay, you're dumping on them about me. That makes it awkward as well. So just be honest with one another what the conversation is.
That brings me to secrets.
Yeah.
How dangerous are secrets between couples? Outside of the fact that you don't know what I got you for Father's Day or for your birthday, right?
There are no secrets. She always knows what I'm getting for
presents.
For
like,
presents.
Oh,
I'm like, I can never. She's like, you got me this. Oh.
It's all right. He gets me
It's
what
all
I
good.
want then.
Yeah.
How dangerous, Joylyn? What do you think? Secrets?
Yeah, I
to a
think they're
relationship?
hugely dangerous. And I think the fact that you, in the first place, feel like you need to keep a secret is the root of it rather than the secret itself, right? And so if you don't have that trust relationship with your spouse, that you feel like there's a secret that needs to be had, or you feel like that you can't trust them with something, or you're doing something that you shouldn't be and need to keep that secret, then it's hugely damaging.
It is,
Yeah.
It's the separation, I think, this between intimacy. Like intimacy is into me, you, see, and if there's a secret in there that I'm holding, then there's going to be a separation of that intimacy, and there's going to be something that's going to be a space between that's
Yeah.
going to, and you might never, share it or not share it, or you may never know, but there's something that just created a space between that intimacy, and two becoming one, you can't afford that space.
How important is it having Jesus Christ as the foundation to a healthy marriage?
Vital. Yeah, absolutely vital. And I don't know, like there's times when in our life we're like, we don't understand how people can go through things in life, in family, in marriage without having Jesus. And like Kelly said, we've always had that. And so we're able to, like we've had that in our families, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, we just feel like everybody needs that.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I totally agree. I think the best analogy that I saw was the picture of a triangle, and the further, the base of the triangle is the furthest separation between there. If God was at the point of the triangle, the closer that we get to God as it goes up the triangle, the closer we get to one another. Mm-hmm. And if one goes up and one doesn't, gets closer to God and one doesn't, there's still a separation in space. But the closer we get to God, the closer we get to one another. So I think He's the center, and that's vital for a healthy marriage.
That's a pyramid scheme I can get behind.
Yeah, there we go.
Absolutely.
Joylyn Stickle, Kelly Stickle with My Victory Church, thanks again for joining us here in studio.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.